Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I am bringing you a fan-based podcast that is endorsed by Uriah Heep. I'm the fan. And it's time for another episode of the show. This time we are going to be going through the song I'll Keep On Trying, which is a very interesting song. And we're going to get to that. But first, I have some people to thank. You know, I have to do this. It's really important that you appreciate the people that bring you the things that you can do, the joys in life, all those kind of things. I'm a huge proponent of gratitude. So thank you very much to my graphic artist, Scott Lazinski, who did an amazing job with the logo and some last minute changes to the logo. And of course, very important, my friends at Audionamics, whose product IDC or Instant Dialogue Cleaner goes on every single podcast episode I do. You guys are awesome. And I appreciate you. They also have a wonderful track separating program. So go to their site, audionamics.com, and enjoy their products. My brothers at the Deep Dive Podcast Network are also very important to me. You know, we've got John and Nate over at the Deep Purple Podcast. We have the Simple Man at Skinnerd Reconsidered, Terry T-Bone Mathley at T-Bone's Prime Cuts, and a new show coming very soon. And we have Riot Sabbath Bloody Podcast. Then there's Paul, Joe, and David at the Lap of the Pods. Then, if all that isn't enough, check out gottahear'emall.com, where you can find information about Deep Purple and Emerson, Lake and Palmer's tour history and some interesting articles about the bands, things that have happened. Very well-researched stuff and great place to go. And also another very important podcast, you should check out Ace on Music, which you can find on Stitcher and YouTube. There may be some other places as well. Ace is Uriah Heep's manager, as well as the manager for Thin Lizzy and some other bands, and he has a lot of great insight into a completely different perspective of the music business, from marketing to advertising to how to put a box set together. He talks about all kinds of great stuff and often talks about the inner workings of the work he does with Uriah Heep. So very interesting podcast. A lot of great stuff there. Go check it out. One of my favorite episodes was when he was talking about really cool album covers. And there were some ones that I did not know about that I thought were great. So go check it out. Now, though, we are here to talk about the song I'll Keep On Trying. And I will keep on trying to bring you a great show. Okay, that was really crappy humor. But you know what? I'm the only one doing the jokes here. So you get what you get. This is a really interesting song off of Very Heavy, Very Humble. We're actually getting towards the bottom of the episodes for this album already. And it just seems like it went by so fast. But, you know, before I talk about the song and go through it and give you all my little thoughts, what we should really do is find out what the mighty Mick Box has to say.
Hello there, it's Mick, and I'm talking about a song called I'll Keep On Trying, a Heep song written by me and David. And I have to say that the intro goes through a few musical passages. There's the trademark R's in there. There's wah guitar. There's octave bends. There's kind of everything in there, which ends up with a fantastic bass part that Paul Newton plays, really high up, really fast, really clear, really spot on and in the pocket. Credit to Paul there. It was fantastic. The song gets into a groove. It's a very heavy riff, and if I had to say anything, it's probably very much in a Vanilla Fudge sort of style, if you like. You know, it's really dirty and earthy, and I don't know, just takes you along. You know, but the song's actually about a love story going wrong, to be honest. But there we go. Those things happen. But you know, after the riff and the verse, and it goes into this fantasy section, which is really, really cool, and then it starts building out of that, and it kind of goes into which is very reminiscent of sort of Sweet Freedom that comes up later in one of our albums, way later. So it's kind of the forerunner of that. if there's some sort of comparison there to be had. And then, of course, there's the wah solo, which, again, just full of excitement, just heads down, go for it and capture the moment. And that's exactly what that does. And, I really enjoyed listening to this track. Really cool. And a lot of people say it's, A, one of their favourite tracks, and B, one of their favourite solos. So, in that, I'm going to sign off with that because that's all good, isn't it? Brilliant. Thanks, guys. Speak to you later. Bye for now.
Well, I'm really glad that Mick brought that up because there definitely is a Sweet Freedom connection, which we'll hear in this song, but it'll have a little bit more meaning when we get to Sweet Freedom for those who don't know it. So this was their first album. Sweet Freedom, I think, was the fifth. So quite a distance between the two songs. And it's not uncommon. There's only so many combinations and things that you're going to go, you know what, that part really works here. I know we've used it before, but I think it works well in this song. It happens. And I think it works brilliantly in both songs, but we'll find that out later. But I'm glad I'm not the only one that saw that. The other thing that Mick brought up, which I thought was great, was the connection to the Vanilla Fudge. Now, the Vanilla Fudge was an incredibly important band in music history, and I don't really know that they get the full credit for that. People look at the Beatles as the pioneers of music, and some people look at Jimi Hendrix as that, and I've cited him a couple times on the show. But the fact is, the Vanilla Fudge was actually a very big inspiration for bands as well. Obviously had a Uriah Heep connection. Deep Purple was patterning themselves after the Vanilla Fudge in the early days. So thinking of the first three Deep Purple albums, kind of the sound that they wanted to have. Many other bands from back in the late 60s, early 70s have cited that Vanilla Fudge were a very big inspiration. So where people talk about, I don't know where we would be in music without the Beatles, I would have to add Vanilla Fudge to that list because I think they were a very inspirational and vital band for that time in music history. I have to wonder, had they not been around, what music would have been like. And that's kind of the scale that I weigh things on. So certainly they had their impact. I mean, you could say that to some degree about just about every band back in those days, but so many bands have cited the Vanilla Fudge as being their inspiration, who they wanted to emulate, that sort of thing. So, credit to them for sure. But, I think we should just start listening to the song. It's really quirky because it has a lot of cool different parts that almost feel like puzzle pieces that sometimes you kind of feel like they don't fit together, but yet they do. And that's one of the coolest things about this song. I can see why a lot of people say it's their favorite. Mick's solo is great in this song, and we're going to get to all of that. So let's just get started. So right off the bat, we've got some pretty cool things. It sounds kind of ominous. It sounds a little creepy, maybe. Something intriguing, makes you raise your eyebrow, going, what's going on in this song? And then the vocals come in, and it's just this majestic, powerful sound. And they're really high this time, too. And they're very powerful. You've got nice sounding drums that are not overpowering it, but the fills definitely come in and you can hear them. You can feel them in your chest. Really powerful opening right off the bat. I love it. It's pretty amazing. We're 50 seconds into the song. We haven't even hit the first verse yet, but there's already been all these different changes and patterns and things to set up the rest of the song. You heard that high bass part from Paul Newton, which just has really a great tone to it. Even in the higher register, a bass can still sound rich. And I really like the sound that he had there. You got to love a little bit of a cowbell filler too. There's not a lot of people using cowbells these days. I think it's kind of a lost instrument. There's so many good things that can be done with one. A lot of great songs over the years had cowbell in them. And it's nice to see that and actually to use it just as a little short burst as you would on a snare drum kind of a neat application for it. But already you've got all these dynamics. You have no idea where the song's going at this point. You've started off with a sort of a foreboding feeling, and now you're into these, different, it's almost a little happier. It's already a quite a roller coaster ride, this one. So now we're hitting that big heavy riff, and it's just, really powerful, great tone, a lot of low end in it, mixed with Paul Newton's bass playing. And you're hearing those little snare accents that we're getting really used to from Alex Napier on drums, which I really like. You heard him from the beginning in Gypsy, kind of a similar feel on the drums to this one. But here we are, we're at 1:09 and just about to get to the first vocal. So there's so much going on, so much to unpack and experience in this song that you could even, go back and listen to this just a couple times before you even move on with the song to try and figure out where it's going. Because at this point, just hitting the riff, we're only just beginning to understand what this song is all about musically.
You came to me with all of your lies, and I was taken in so well. It took me quite a time to see the disguise, made it very hard to tell. Now here you are again, but you're begging in vain, 'cause I really don't want to know.
It's a bit of an interesting mix on this song too. We're getting used to the guitars being over in the left ear and the organ being in the right ear when there's organ on a song. But I do think the guitars on this one also are a little bit loud in comparison because there's more low end in them. And Paul's playing right along with Mick on it. So it's a little bit thicker of a sound. And then you're hearing the keyboard in the right ear, which is a little bit quieter. They don't have to be the same volume. If you want that effect, if you want to feel closer to the guitars, you could certainly mix it that way. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's interesting because the keyboards are still playing kind of that foreboding sound, and the guitars are playing a little more riffy, a little happier than what the keyboards are playing. So it's kind of an interesting mix. It's almost like the vocals aren't sad or angry. They're kind of just right in the middle. And then you've got the O's and the ahs, and those are, back to a little bit foreboding. So there's really kind of a lot of back and forth in the emotion in the song already. And it's really just a curious thing because you don't know how to feel yet.
You came to me with a little bit of charm. You had me down on my knees. I didn't really think there was any harm, but all you ever did was tease. You took all the love that I ever had to give. There was nothing left to show.
Now, I want to point out that it is very possible that the reason it was mixed this way is because the guitar is playing the more interesting riff, and the keyboard is really backing it up more with longer passages and not doubling note for note. So it's really more filler, and a lot of times an engineer will take that filler and just kind of blend it in to thicken up the song as opposed to featuring it. Whereas the main riff is the thing that's more active and would be paid more attention to, so that might be a little bit more upfront in the mix. The balance still seems slightly off to me as an engineer, but every engineer's ear is different, and we're all very critical of what we like and don't like in a mix. So just take that as my own babble. But overall, it sounds pretty good. I just think if I were mixing it, I would probably put a hair less guitar, maybe a hair more organ, or maybe a little bit more low end in the organ in the mix. But that's just me. There's nothing wrong with what was done here.
Till the breath of spring. So I'm gonna keep on trying till I feel like dying, and I lay down and pass away. But that won't happen till tomorrow, and by then I can borrow another day. So I'm gonna keep on trying, yeah.
Another just nice, passionate vocal from David Byron, which, you just come to expect. It's his trademark. The guy knows how to sing a story. And what's really nice, too, is in the first section of that last part I just played, you've got some backing vocals behind the story that he's telling, but it's not so much that it's intrusive and you can't understand what he's saying, but you definitely can hear the presence of the background vocals as well. So that was mixed very nicely. Some great work from Paul Newton on bass on that part. And that's the Sweet Freedom section that Mick was talking about earlier. We'll get to that when we get to album 5, but just kind of keep that in your mind somewhere. The bass is a little bit of a variation on the Sweet Freedom version from what Paul's playing on this one. And there's slight variations from what Ken's playing, but it's definitely the same feel. It's the same, rhythmic part. But it definitely works here. It's really interesting how many transitions there actually are in this song. It's hard to keep that many transitions in such a short period of time and keep it flowing and interesting without it feeling too choppy. But I think this blends very well.
So I'm gonna keep on trying, yeah.
So I took that back a little bit because Mick's solo really starts before the solo section starts. And then somehow just playing the same note over and over and then building on it, because it sounds like it was multi-tracked, or maybe playing 2 strings. I'm not sure, but there's definitely more layers in there. I'm not a guitar player, so I don't know how that works. But he's just playing the same thing over and over, and yet it just draws us in. We're like just taking the rope and taking another part and pulling and pulling and pulling. And we've got to know where this is going. Then it just takes off into this blister of audio chaos. But this is a perfect example of what I love about Mick's playing. And I talked about this in the last show. I love that he can play fast. I love that he can, play really colorful, but yet keep it all within the context of the song. There's nothing that I hear in this personally, and it could just be because I'm so used to the solo, but there's nothing I hear that takes me out of the song, that makes me go, wait a minute, this doesn't fit, this doesn't feel right. Like, it all just feels good within the context of the song. And even better, he's playing very quickly over just this, lower tempo song that's not adjusting to him. It's just carrying along, letting him do his thing. Really, really cool section of music right there. And you can see why people love that solo so much. A couple of really cool things about the vocals here is I love the way David's voice just kind of fades into this final verse. That added just a level of texture for me that I would not have expected, but I really like the way that felt. The other thing is he feels like he's emotionally just over the edge, just the way that he sings this last verse. It's so powerful. It's not warbly. I'm not sure what the word is. It's not vibrato, but there's just something like almost like he's shaking so hard while he's singing this verse that it's causing his voice to change the sound a little bit. It's definitely not smooth the way that the other verses have been or what you would expect. It's like a really powerful effect. And, not knowing what was behind it, I think it's really cool because it feels like this guy is just about to burst. And I really like that for this last section here. That first part there, the way that Ken was doubling Mick, I really like the sound of that. I don't know how easy that is to play on guitar, but it's a little challenging on keyboard. So, just a little more of a testament to how great Ken Hensley was on the organ. It's amazing what that guy could play. But I love the sound of that. I think that blended really well. And by this point, the organ, I'd say right before the solo, I think the organ came in a little bit louder and kind of blended a little bit better with the guitar, in my opinion. But I love the end. I love the way that it kind of just, shows that build back from the beginning, but now goes into the end of the song. I like that sort of repeat there with a little bit of a variation. Really cool stuff. And just that abrupt ending. And you're just left with like, wow, I really want to hear that song again because I really want to hear that song again. But it's really cool. And I really dig it. Great song, great tune. And this album, as eclectic as it is, every song so far, in my opinion, I've loved. I really do. There isn't, as far as I'm concerned, a filler track on this album. In fact, most of the stuff that I'm more familiar with, I would say there aren't really any filler tracks. And I'm not, I don't know, maybe my opinion of what a filler track is a little bit skewed. Maybe it's the nostalgia because I've listened to these songs so many times over the years. But I love each and every one of these songs. So I don't think that's it. I think I just really love each and every one of these songs. And we're going to dig into another one on the next episode. But for now, that's it, guys. That's all. Keep on trying. From Very Heavy, Very Humble. Love it. Great track. I'd love to know what you guys think. Send me an email. Hit me up on Twitter. Let's start a discussion. Those are always fun. It's fun to hear what people say about the songs. I did a poll after the first 4 episodes, just saying kind of, which one did you guys like the best? And it was all over the place. It was, it was a lot of Gypsy because that's, that's the entry point for a lot of people to Uriah Heep. So there's that nostalgia factor, and it's a great song. There's a lot of Lucy Blues, which I liked because it's a more of a straightforward track. So yeah, a lot of variation in that, but keep it coming, guys. We all love this band. That's why we're here. Or maybe some of you guys are new to the band and you're just discovering the songs for the first time, or maybe you've only heard them once. So I'd love to hear what you think, what your impressions are, now maybe after not hearing it for a while or hearing it for the first time. That's always interesting. So, before we go, I want to let you know that you can follow the show at scotthaskin.com and click on the link at the top for Uriah Heep Podcast. You can also join the Facebook group where we will be doing some cool things here down the road when I get organized. And that is at facebook.com, Uriah Heep Podcast. You can join the discussion or start a discussion with us on Twitter at Heep Podcast. And you can follow us on Instagram at Uriah Heep Podcast. And then there's the email address of UriahHeepPodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget the band's actual official site run by David White. He does such an amazing job. And that is Uriah-Heep.com, where he has been building that site for a couple of decades and it just has tons and tons of great content on it. So go check that out. And thank you guys for joining me for another episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!